Okay, today I'm going to talk about making patterns in Illustrator. In this case, Illustrator is a great program for um, making shapes and then repeating those shapes into what we'll call a pattern. So here's the kind of assignment I wrote on Canvas. You can see I made one shape and then I repeated it and I added maybe a shadow to it or repeated it some more. So this is kind of what I'm looking for you to make this week. Um, if you think about it, patterns are pretty much everywhere. And let's go back to, I don't know, I had a really good link somewhere here. Maybe this is it. Throughout history patterns, I think probably the best patterns you'll find in history would be the Islamic patterns that they have on buildings. Again, you have these beautiful patterns that are in the tiles of buildings and such. And so I'm sure there's plenty of other pattern examples, and you can see, making a grid of information and repeating it is basically what a pattern is, and Illustrator is great at that. So if we start the program here, I'm going to start with a new file. I'm not going to worry about the size right now. I'm just going to hit OK. And then I'm going to talk about some basic tools. I know we're still introducing Illustrator to us all, but I'm going to use some basic tools, basic rectangles. And so I'm going to make a basic rectangle. Okay, and so I'm going to start with a basic rectangle, which is the fifth one down on the left side. And if I draw the rectangle and start drawing, again, it either starts from the upper left or lower right, either way that you kind of like to drag with the left mouse. And if I hold down the Shift key, it'll make a perfect square. Now, you can make a basic pattern out of a perfect square, but I'm going to actually change the shape of the square. There's a couple different ways. I'm going to always go back to the move tool so I can move it around, and I'm going to add some color to it. If you don't have the color palette shown up, again, it's the very top little icon on the right side. It says color, and it opens up this. And this is an easy way to select the color without having to use the color swatches here or here. So there's like 3 places to choose colors. You have these options over here in the bottom of the toolbar. You have these options up here. Again, you have your fill and your stroke, and then over here you have, of course, this giant color picker, where I can just pick a color that I want, and it has a little eyedropper up here. So I'm going to pick a color, and then I'm going to alter. Now, if you remember, objects inside of Illustrator have dots that go around the outside, and I like to use the white or direct selection tool to select dots. And so a basic triangle or rectangle here, or square, I'm sorry, a basic square here, or rectangle, yeah, has 5 dots. You got 4 on each side and 1 in the middle. Okay, and so I'm going to manipulate the 2 on one side so that they are on an angle to give me an angle. There are some tools called shear to do that and so on, but for right now I'm going to just hold my left mouse down, or you can shift click on both of them. So again, I'm going to hold the left mouse down and drag a box around the 2 end dots of a square. Let me zoom in a little bit on that, and I know there we go. Again, I can hold the left mouse down and drag over 2 dots on the end there. That's one way of going about it. Another way to select the dots might be to click on one, hold the Shift key down, click on another one, and I'm going to select both dots. Now these 2 dots on this side are not selected. They're kind of open. They got kind of a white inside. These are solid blue. That's what tells me that they are selected. Now I'm going to move these 2 dots up, and how I'm going to do that is holding down the left Shift key and dragging. And as I drag, you'll notice it'll drag up. Now the problem with that is it's not really telling me how far I'm dragging and so on and so on. There's some numbers popping up, but that's really not giving me much information, so I'm not going to do it that way. That is one way of going about it. But what I really want to do, and I'm going to undo that, again, to always undo is either Command Z on the keyboard or Edit Undo. Instead of using just you can click and drag these points wherever you want. It might be better to use something called the Transform tool. Now, where is the Transform tool? It's in the right side of the toolbar. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6, 7, 8 down. It's all called the free transform tool. If I click on that, it's going to give me some options. Okay, you have some perspective, you have free distort, and then you have this one, free transform. So in this case, I'm going to want to, well, this is not going to do what I want. I want to do maybe the end dots. No, this is not going to do what I want, I don't think. Definitely not. How did I do that? Okay, again, it's not giving me the angles that I was hoping that it would show me, but that's okay. We're just going to continue. So again, I'm going to grab the 2 points on the end, and I'm going to drag them kind of up so that it is kind of on an angle like that. Then I'm going to go back to my black arrow. Again, I have one side of my pattern. Next one I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this object, but I'm going to duplicate it so it flips to the other side. Okay, so I'm going to duplicate first and then flip it. So the reason why I'm going to duplicate it first and then flip it is so that it's directly aligned, and I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to, again, the magic key on the keyboard is Option on a Mac or Control on Windows. I'm using the black arrow or the selection tool, and I'm going to click and drag. And if you hold the Shift key down as you're dragging, it'll keep it aligned, keep it straight as far as horizontal across. I'm going to let my left mouse up on my cursor and let my fingers up off on my keyboard. So again, I was holding Option and Shift, and Option, click and start dragging, then hold the Shift key down. Don't hold the Shift key as you start. You hold the Option, click and drag, and then hold the Shift key down, and it'll start going on a certain angle. Now we want to flip this around. The way to flip this around is we're going to use a transform tool, and that transform tool is under Object, Transform, and underneath here there's a variety of options for moving, rotate, reflect, shear, scale, and shear. The one I want to use is called Reflect. If I click on the Reflect, it'll ask me which way do I want to reflect. Do I want to reflect horizontal or vertical? I want to do horizontal in this case, and I'm going to hit OK. And you'll notice it flips it around just perfectly to have it fit. And then we could change the color. Of course, I don't want them both to be the same color. So let's go with a little light green here. There we go. Then next I want to add another kind of shape to the top of this. And so to do that, I'm going to use a different tool. Now you could go and try and make a rectangle and try and have it fit there, but that would be rather difficult. So they have a great tool inside of Illustrator that makes any shape you want. In the next couple weeks we're going to try and learn to master that, and that's the pen tool, which is the third one down on the left side here. If I click on that, how it works is by putting points down and then making a line between the points. So it's like connecting the dots. When you were a kid, you did coloring books, I'm sure of that, and you went from one dot to the other to the other. That's kind of like this. So as I move my cursor around, you'll see the pen tool turns, and it has little blue things that pop up and things like that. So what we're going to do is I'm going to kind of start maybe in the middle, and you'll notice it turns, I get a little purple line. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see. I get a little purple line that shows up here, and I'm going to kind of guess right here where I think the point should start. And I'm going to click, and then I'm going to go all the way over to the dot that's on the end over here, and I'm going to click, and I'm going to go all the way down here to the dot, and I'm going to click, and I'm going to go all the way over here to this dot, and I'm going to click, and I'm going to go all the way back to the very first dot that I made, and I'm going to click. So I just made a rectangle that kind of follows the top of this, these two shapes, and it looks like a box now. Some other things you needed to make sure, and I failed to mention, is make sure these two objects down here are not selected when you make this, because it thinks you might want to add to this shape down here, and we don't want to add, we just want to make a new shape above here. So keep that in mind. And then let's make a color up here. We'll make a nice, kind of orange goes well with that. Okay, nice sort of high-tech logo. Look at that. We could just call this, something startup.com, And so, once you have a basic shape, you could use it to make a pattern. To select, you got 1, 2, 3 objects. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all 3 of them and kind of group them together so that they, the program sees them as a group. And what that means is I don't have to keep selecting on all 3 of them if I want to select them as a team. So I'm going to draw a box around all three of them by holding the left mouse down and dragging across. Again, you got just kind of this invisible box that shows up here with these dotted lines. It selects all the objects in there, and then to group them together so the program sees them as a team, we go under Object, Group, and that groups them together, and now they're all one big team. And so I'm going to zoom out there. And let's make it a little smaller. I'm going to hold the Shift key down as I'm scaling. Remember, if you're using the black arrow and you should have some sort of dots that go around the outside, you can just basically scale like this to, let me zoom in there. Again, you have these dots that go around. Okay, so now we want to kind of repeat this, duplicate it. I don't know, let's make a pattern out of it. So again, a pattern is kind of a duplicating objects and putting them together into a geometric shape. And to do that, we're going to hold down, again, I have them all selected. They're selected as a group. See, if I click off and click on, it selects them as a group. Okay, so if I hold down the Option key, I can click and drag. And what that's doing is duplicating. And then if I hold down the Shift key, it'll keep it in alignment. Okay, so again, the trick here is you got to hold down the Shift key so that they are aligned after you start dragging. Again, I'm using Option, click and drag, and after I start dragging, I held down the Shift key to keep them nice and aligned. And if I let my mouse up off the cursor, you'll see it gives me a nice pattern, and I got it to line up just nicely right on top of each other there. So if I have a pattern like that, that looks pretty good. It's a good start of a pattern. If I want to do another one, I'm going to select both boxes by holding the Shift key down to select both boxes, and maybe I will then try and go down. Again, I'm holding down the Option key and I'm clicking and dragging, and there you go. I have another geometric shape. Okay, so if you think about it, you could do all kinds of different options like that. If you want, you could even go further. You can select all of them again. I might shrink them down a little bit. And then I'm going to hold down the Option key again, click and drag, making sure to hold down the Shift key, and I'm going to line them up there. Look at that, see? It's an automatic geometric pattern. Very interesting to do. Now if you want to color one of the boxes, remember they're in a group right now. Let's say, oh, this is a nice cool thing, but I want to change just this one box to a different color. So you can actually use the white selection tool to select one of the boxes, and then you can actually color it individually. And so we'll make this one kind of purple. There we go. Look at that. Interesting. Now you say, oh, that doesn't look very good. I really didn't want it to be that way. Then you say to yourself, well, how do I know exactly what one of these orange is? I'm going to go back to orange. Of course you can undo. But let's say you forgot how to do undo and you want to go back to this original orange color. Well, if you select an object and you want to color, oh, remember it selects it as a group. Look at that, and I got a question mark over here for my fill. And what that question mark is telling me, hey, you have more than one object selected with multiple colors. Okay, that's what the question mark is telling me over here and up here. Okay, so we get 2 question marks. Again, I want to select just the top rectangle and change it back to orange. I need to use my white selection tool, and I need to click on just the one on top. Oh, it's not letting me do it. Well, the reason why it's not letting me select just that one is because I have these all selected. You need to either click off or use the Command Shift A to deselect everything. I find it easier instead of holding the Command Shift A to deselect. Maybe just click anywhere in that area out here. Then click on my shape. Now how do I know what this orange was right here? Well, in this case you don't. I would have to try and write the number down. That's too much work. Well, one of the tools that they have in the toolbar inside of Illustrator is this eyedropper right here. If I click on the eyedropper, I can come over and suck up the orange. So whatever I put, again, there's an eyedropper. It's probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 down on the left side. It's called the eyedropper. If you go and click on a color, remember I have the one I want to change selected, and I use the eyedropper to select one, and it should change it to whatever color I select. See, if I wanted it to be green, or the yellow, or the orange, the eyedropper will select it. In fact, the eyedropper, if you have a pattern in there or some kind of texture or something, it'll actually select that also. So it does everything. It does everything that the other shape has. Now again, I'm going to deselect with my black arrow. Okay, so this is a good start to a pattern. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different things you can do with a pattern, and so on. So let's talk about other shapes. I think you could probably figure that out with a simple geometric shape like that. So let me move this out of the way a little bit here, and we can come back to that. Remember that was just a rectangle. If you go underneath the basic shape tool, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's a whole bunch of other options under there. You got the rectangle tool, you got the rounded rectangle tool, you got an ellipse tool, you got a polygon tool, you got a star tool. Don't do the flare tool yet. That's not going to help you. Let's avoid that for now. But these two, again, polygons are very popular, stars are very popular. If you choose one of these, you're actually not stuck to using only like a polygon as what, 5, 6 sides? 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sides. If you come over and you choose one of those tools and then double click on the screen, it'll actually ask you how many sides you want. So what if we say we don't want a polygon, we got an octagon? What's that, 8 sides? Again, I just clicked on the screen. I did not drag. I just, using one of the basic shape tools, the polygon tool, I go and click in the artboard with the mouse, and this option pops up. You can tell it how many sides you want. Maybe you wanted a triangle pattern. I could put 3 in there and hit OK. Gives me a triangle. We can do the same thing that we were doing earlier. Let me make it a little bigger so you can see it. Let me zoom in. There we go. We have a triangle. Again, we can then go and use our black arrow. We can duplicate. Option, click and drag. Then hold the Shift key down, and it'll then go into a pattern. We can change the color of that one. I don't know why I'm into orange and green today. Zoom out a little bit. Let me make these a little smaller. Again, using the black arrow, I can select both of them and scale them down. Okay, and then maybe we can option click and drag again. There we go. And then maybe let's flip them around to make a diamond. We can option click and drag down. And then maybe use, remember the tool that we were using before to flip this over? It was underneath the reflect option. It was under object, transform, reflect, and then this time we want to reflect vertically so that they're opposite. Oh, that didn't work. No. Object, transform, reflect. We want to do, I guess, horizontal. Yes, we did. It was smart enough. Oh, and look, I flipped it vertically already. Hey, that looks kind of cool though. We have a little red, green, red, green. So hey, little mistakes sometimes turn out correct. So again, then we could either add more shapes to this, or we can duplicate it. Again, you can use the pen tool to draw. Maybe you want colors inside here. You know, you can, remember the pen tool? We can make a color inside there. Now, there's a red in there. And maybe we give that a color. And so on. So you can do all kinds of things like that. Let's try some other shapes. Again, that was a triangle. Let's do another one. We got, okay, here we go. We got the polygon tool again. And if I click on the screen once, we can put in, how about we do 8? That would be an octagon, I guess. And here we go, an octagon. And then we could maybe put that blue. There we go. Oh, that is an octagon. The original one, I think. Yeah. And then, of course, you could do the same thing with that. We can duplicate that. And then duplicate that. Again, I'm holding down the option, click and drag, so on. You get the idea of how to make a pattern. You can color them different colors, and then so let's talk about saving our objects. And let me see, what else was I going to go over? Let's go back to where are we at online here. Let's go back to the assignment. And let's see. So I want you to make a pattern and repeat it. And look how I flipped it. This one I just made them all. I duplicated the pattern, made all the colors black, and kind of put it behind there just to do something different. This one I filled in a little area and then duplicated it a couple of times. So you know, we need to save it as. No, we didn't go over stroke options, but we did duplicate and all that stuff. We need to change the size of the artboard and so on. So let's go back. we can talk about the stroke options for a minute. So in this case, you'll notice there's black lines that go around all my patterns here. So what I want to do is, you don't have to necessarily keep them black. They can be part of your design. So let's talk about that for a moment. I know we have a pattern. It's nice. The black line going around the outside really helps. If you don't want the black line, maybe your pattern doesn't need a black line around it, you can always go down here. So you make sure you select all your objects. I'm going to go see here where there's black stroke down here. Okay, I can click on the stroke, this little black option here, and I can turn it off if I want. Because your pattern, having a black line between your objects, maybe you don't want. In fact, it might be even a better pattern without that stroke. Okay, so that's how you can turn it off. Again, there's like a no here, like no smoking, no nothing, with the red line through it. Means, hey, turn it off. Let's turn it back on for now. I just wanted to point it out. Maybe we make it red. How did I turn it back on? I was using this option up here. Again, you can change the color here, change the color here, or even change the color way over here. So now that the stroke is on top, if I choose a color over here, it's going to change it. So depending upon which one's on top, the fill's on top or the stroke's on top, this will change according to that color. But what I wanted to do was talk about size. If you click here in the stroke next to where I changed the color up here in the upper left corner, you see the word stroke. If I left click on there, it'll show you different options for the stroke. We have different sizes. That's what weight means here. And if we make it thicker, you'll see whoosh. But hey, that might be part of your pattern, maybe that big line that goes around the outside. In addition, do you want the stroke to be aligned the center? Do you want it to be inside the object? Or do you want it to be outside the object? Okay, outside gives you kind of a weird option. This is inside the object. The stroke goes around the inside of the object. And then this one goes around the center. Okay, so in the path, the line of the path, where do you want the stroke to be? In the middle of the path, inside the path, outside the path. In this case, I'm going to go inside. Makes it easier for you to do something with it. Okay, and then of course there's other options like dashes in there. If you want to try dashes, it's right here, and you can change the gaps inside there. So there's a whole bunch of different options in the stroke. You're just going to have to try them. We'll be talking about different options when we get to. It's not going to let me do that. But we'll be talking about different options of stroke in the next couple of classes. I'll turn that dash off. Okay, let's save it. I love this design. It's really nice. It's my pattern I want to keep. In fact, we can duplicate again. Option click and drag. And then, oops, I think I didn't go over far enough. Option click and drag. And maybe over so the strokes overlap each other. There we go. And then, I guess these should overlap each other too. Here we go. And I'm using the arrow keys on the keyboard to nudge. They call that nudge. Arrow on the keyboard nudges your shape. So whatever you select and nudge. Oh, even the ones in here should be nudged up. I want the strokes to be over top of each other so that some of them aren't too thick. Okay, that looks pretty good. And then let's randomly color our object. Oops, again, what did I just change? I changed the stroke color because I had that on top. I'm going to undo that. Again, whatever one you have on top, if you use this color option here, it's going to change it. I want to change the fill to random colors here. I'm going to randomly, oops, keep using green for some reason. And then we don't want that one. Oh, there you have a blue one. How about a dark one? Oops, we already got one like that. Okay, whatever. There we go. Beautiful kind of pattern. So what I want to do is, again, you want to kind of repeat it a couple times so it looks more like this. You don't want to kind of, this isn't really a pattern. It's just basically a bunch of shapes that are repeated. So again, a pattern would be where you would take it, and I'm going to make it a little smaller, and you would repeat it many times to make it into a pattern. This is more of what I'm looking for you to do, a pattern. Okay, so let's just say I have a nice sort of pattern right here. I can select it. And this is kind of boring one. Hopefully you make it a little better than I just made an an octagon and then repeated it a couple times. I think you can spend some time making and planning and thinking about it. Do some research into historical patterns. But what I'm going to do is shrink the artboard down. So there's two files I'm going to save here. One is the Illustrator file, which is kind of the working file if I want to go open this up and change it again. So I'm going to go under File, Save As, and call this one my, we'll put your name on it, Jeff's Raskoff's pattern. So put your name on it so you know who it is and I know who you are. Then next, so I save an Illustrator file. Just going save, 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 put a name on it. Next, I want to shrink the artboard down just to this object and save it as a PNG to upload to Canvas. To do that, I'm going to select all the objects. Again, I draw a box around all of them using my left mouse, selects them all, and I go underneath Object, Artboards, Fit to selected art. What that'll do is shrink the artboard down, and when you save as a PNG or another file format like JPEG or something, it saves whatever's in the artboard. So all that other stuff that's outside, like the stuff that's up here that I was working on and testing, that's not going to save. Well, it'll save in the Illustrator file, but it won't save in the PNG file. So when you export out as a PNG, it saves it just as this. Now, in your version, I'm not sure what version, they've changed a lot of the save windows, but if you go under File, Export, you see it says Export. There's one that says Save. Yours might say Save as PNG, the first option here. I have the latest version of Illustrator 2000, whatever, I'm not really sure, 2016.5 I think, or something like that. But in the version that we have in the classroom at school, it says Export for PNG up here, not screens. So just keep that in mind. You want PNG, that's fine. I'm going to say export as here. Again, it's under export, and I'm going to save it as a PNG. Again, PNG. And, oh, it's doing the whole thing. Why is it doing that to me? It shouldn't be that way. Oh, okay. Maybe there isn't export. I have to do it a little bit differently. Export for screens? Why is it doing it? Okay, that worked. See, now it's only saving the pattern here, the artboard. Okay, there's a little bit, I'm not really sure. It depends on the version. It looks like they keep changing the way, but now it looks right. Again, I went, in this version I have under export for screens. Export as PNG should have only, but when I went to hit export, it looked like it has the top patterns in it, and I don't want that. I just want what's in the artboard. Maybe I can change in this window. It doesn't even look like I can choose the artboard in this window. Art optimized? No, it doesn't really look like. Okay. Under File, Export, I guess I'm going to have to use the Export for Screens, and I'm going to choose Artboard here, and I'm going to choose the location. I have a folder where I am saving all my stuff, and then I'm going to hit Choose, and then I'm going to hit Export Artboard, and there it is. It's right here. So this is the one I'm going to want to put inside of Canvas. So hopefully that helps you. You're just going to have to practice. This is the greatest pattern making program ever.